Okay, now before we get into how to do the test, we need to understand a couple things. You're looking at variance. I mean, it's called a one-way analysis of variance for a reason, right? Okay, so we need to ponder just a second what kind of variance we're talking about. There's actually more than one kind. I know it's going to go crazy. And that's what I was getting at back here with these pictures. These have similar variances in one way in that their means are the same distance apart, but they have different variances in another way because you can see this group is larger variance than this group. The classical down here is much tighter packed and so on. So that gets at what's going on. There's two types of variance. There's the within the sample variance. So within each specific group, there's a variability. For example, and we already know what it is, but let me type them up real quick. I know the standard deviations were given and all of that, but bear with me here. So var.s, or var if you've got old school Excel. Okay, so we know that the variances are these numbers, and the sample standard deviations were equal to stdev.s, or just stdev if you have old school Excel. And these were the numbers we saw before, the 4.2 and the 2.4 and so on. Okay, so notice this means that you have within your sample, right? This sample right here, these advertisements had a variance of 17.3. This sample right here had a variance of 5.7, and so on. Okay, so let me type that in here. Okay, so S squared, oops, for advertisements was equal to 17.3. Okay, that is the variance for those 5 numbers. Let me type up the other ones. Okay, that's the variability within group. Matter of fact, let me label that here so you can see it. So this is the variance within groups. Okay. All right, so then the question becomes, what about between the groups? So let me find the sample means for a second. Okay, oops, there we go. Okay, so then between sample variance is how far apart are these numbers? In other words, between sample variance would be equal to a sample variance, so equals var dot s, or just var if you have old school Excel, from these numbers. What was the variance between the groups means? And that's 14.92. Right? That's a very different thing than this. This is talking about, let me give it a different color. Okay, so the blue thing is talking about, look, this group to this group to this group. What were their variances? So if you look at the picture, it's saying, okay, pretend all the other dots aren't there and just look at Muzak. Muzak has a variance of 5.7. Classical, these 5 dots have a variance of 11.8. But the next one's saying how far apart or how varied between the groups, how varied are the sample means. In other words, right, S for the X bars is equal to what I found. Oopsie, not that. 14.92. Go away. There we go. 14.92. Okay. Which is letting you know how varied, how different, how spread out were the centers of each group. And this is answering how spread out was each group individually, ignoring the others. All right, so that's the between, or excuse me, this is the within sample variance, and this is between sample variance.